So the next tricep exercise I'm going to do is like a French press on this bench, which I've actually never used before.
Wow, okay, now he's calling it a French press, which of course is another name for an overhead tricep extension. And an overhead tricep extension can be done standing vertically, seated vertically, turned back on an incline, or, you know, as you can see here, this is a real incline. In fact, this has 3 pads that actually will cause his back to arch over the top of that. So let's see what happens.
I'm actually really happy that they have one here because I've always wanted to use one, so we'll see how it feels. This exercise, we're really concentrating on the medial head, that lower sweep in the front double bi and the rear double bi of the tricep.
I really don't like stating these things as fact. The medial head, it works this head, you know, the tricep extends the elbow and all 3 heads of the tricep do that. So as much as we'd like to believe that we're working one head versus the other more, it really doesn't happen, and it's never been proven. So to state that as fact is probably not that good of an idea. I do want to point something out here, and that is that, as you see, before he even starts the movement, his elbows are in front of his head. Okay, that's a good thing. If you were to try to do an overhead tricep extension vertically, when you're straight up and down, either seated straight up and down or standing, what has to happen is you're going to have to try to bring this weight behind you, right? Well, you're going to be faced with a choice. Either you're going to let this elbow drift in front of your head, or you're going to try to push it back alongside your head. And you'll find that by trying to get that upper arm vertical so that your upper arm is right alongside your ear is really uncomfortable on the shoulder, potentially injurious for the shoulder. So by creating an angle, this allows you to lean back and at the same time have the upper arm be vertical or slightly tilted back and still have your elbow in front of your head, which is where it needs to be in order for your shoulder to be in a safe position.
My upper arm, I'm not keeping perpendicular to the floor. I'm angling it back to keep tension through the entire arc of the movement.
Okay, what he's saying there is a good thing. In other words, if his upper arm was straight up and down, when his forearm gets to the top, he will have 0 resistance because the direction of resistance, which is gravity, is parallel to his forearm, right? And so by angling it back and being not perpendicular to gravity, his tricep can stay contracted. That's a good thing.
The first set, we just did straight French presses, and then we started to incorporate just like an incline press to squeeze out some additional repetitions.
Okay, now what he just said is he did the first half of the set as a French press and the last part as an incline press. We'll see it here in just a moment, and I'll point out a few angles that will allow us to really analyze whether or not that was productive.
Since these easy curl bars only go up to 115, it's a little lighter than I'd like to use to stay within
Strong guy.
12 or so. I'm going to do the French press, and then once I get to about the rep range I want to do, I'll go to just kind of like a narrow
okay, that's what I want to point out to you.
Press with like a narrow incline press, just to squeeze out a few more reps.
Okay, the first thing I want to point out is the first half of this bench is like an incline, then it goes even lower incline, then it goes to flat. So what I would say is this bench really should just be right to there, in my opinion. Maybe a little lower, but certainly this part here doesn't even need to be there.
We went to...
He could stop right there. Maybe the bench would be a little higher on his back to support more of his back, but this part here doesn't really contribute much to the bench. He can barely put his head far back enough to rest it on.
Highest fixed weights, I didn't really want to bother with putting some plates on a easy.
Yeah, that part of the bench doesn't do much.
So what I did to continue the set,
and he really is, in my opinion, a little too far back. He's almost lying flat. I think he'd be better off with just a nice, solid, maybe like a 35-degree incline bench.
Was presses. Once I felt that I was reaching...
Now this part is all good. Right here, you can see when he comes down with that bar.
Once I... Failure with...
Boom. Right there, his forearm and gravity are perpendicular to each other. right? That makes that lever the active lever. The upper arm bone is mostly parallel to gravity, which makes it a neutral lever. That means the muscles that are operating the upper arm bone are not working very much, and the muscles that are working the forearm, which is the tricep, is getting 90%, 95% of the workload. That's a good thing.
I went to just essentially...
That's beautiful right there.
Half of a really steep incline press with a narrow grip, just to squeeze out a few more repetitions.
Boom, now we're running into a problem. And that is, you can easily see this lever is now more perpendicular to gravity than this one is. That means he's now basically shifted the majority of that weight over to his front deltoids and pecs. This lever here is not straight up and down, of course, and to the degree that it's not straight up and down, his tricep is working. Well, let's watch a few more repetitions so you really get a sense that his front deltoid and pecs are now doing, I would say, 70%, 75% of the work, and his triceps are doing 20, 25% of the work. Look at that. Now, of course, he's got an angle there, so it's not straight up and down, so his tricep is still working, yes. But look at all the front deltoid and chest involvement, because this lever is now the one that's mostly crossing resistance. Look at that. Right there, it's 100% front deltoid.
On this, you'll notice that rather than having...
Now, the question is that bad? It's not bad. It's not taking away from his tricep, right? It's not making him lose any of the benefit he got on the first half of that set. But what I would say is he's not getting a good return on his investment of energy. He wants to work his tricep, right? And he's now doubled or tripled his effort to get a diminishing return. He would have been better off putting that weight down, picking up a lighter weight, and staying with the right form for triceps, in my opinion. That's what I would have done. I wouldn't have compromised it so that the vast majority of my effort is now being working body parts that I don't even want to work at this particular moment. I would have put that weight down, grabbed one that was 20 or 30 pounds lighter, and squeezed out more reps that way, because that's what he's essentially doing. If he's taking 25% of that weight, by doing that movement, might not pick up a weight that's 25% of that weight and do 100% tricep. That's my opinion.
I've seen that bench and similar benches in some workout videos, but I'd never personally used it, so I was excited to use it.
There's not a lot of incline benches that are short enough to allow tricep movement to be done. Most incline benches are high enough to cover your head, to support your head, because they're intended to be used for incline dumbbell presses for your chest, right? So, you know, again, I'm not crazy about this bench, but it is better than our standard incline bench for the simple reason that it allows the weight to come behind his head without hitting the bench. But it would have been better if it was just a simple, short incline bench.
I really like the feel of it. Very different from just a standard incline bench that has the flat back. I'm not sure the difference that it really creates, but I definitely wasn't able to
front
use
deltoid involvement.
as heavy of a weight. And I may have even felt...
You can clearly see that the upper arm here is more perpendicular to gravity than the forearm is. So he's clearly getting more front deltoid and chest here than he is triceps. He's still getting triceps, yes. So I won't take that away from him, right? It's just a lot of extra effort for a lesser benefit.
I felt more of a stretch at the bottom of the movement. That may have been what I was able to achieve with that new style of bench. You don't see them very often, but I'm glad that they had one here and I was able to use it.
But you know, at the end of the day, here's the thing is, why work extra hard? It's like, why would you pay extra for a product? If you can get a product for X price, why would you pay 50% more for that product? Why would you pay 100% more for that product? That's how I see weight training. What you want to do is you want to get maximum return on your investment. You're going to invest X amount of effort, X amount of energy, X amount of sacrifice, X amount of time, and you want the most amount of pay for that investment, right? So what I try to do is I say, let's eliminate these exercises, or at least minimize these exercises that make you pay more for less. right? That's all I'm saying. But, you know, clearly his physique is fantastic. He looks great, and it's all good stuff. It's all contributing to the physique he has.